Isn't it amazing? In this day and age, in the midst of a pandemic, our best bet is to use soap. I don't know about you, but I found new respect for soap. Soap making essentially involves using the triglycerides or the fats that you have around the world. You can use animal fat, yes, or vegetable oil, both of them are fine. Incidentally, triglycerides are the same chemicals that's probably clogging up your arteries. Yeah, it's fat. So yeah, you start with the source of fat. In my case, I'm using olive oil. So with that fat, you basically add sodium hydroxide, and as a result of the reaction, you get a mixture of. One second. Let me prove this point. Yeah, these two react together, and you get a mixture of glycerin or glycerol and soap. That's it. By the way, I didn't make this glycerin. This is from an older video where I made hand sanitizer at home, and this is not the soap that I made. But anyway, just to prove my point that these two react to produce glycerin and soap. There are 1001 recipes for making soap. The recipes differ not in the process, but in the source of the fats that you use to make the soap. I am going after a recipe called Aleppo soap. Aleppo, of course, is the name of the city in Syria where this soap was made in the old world. There are great legends that this is the best soap you'll ever have. It's good for skin, blah blah blah. I don't know. Let me see. I'll know that once I try this out for the first time. But yeah, it was very popular in the Mediterranean region. So the source of oil for me would be olive oil and laurel berry oil, which is this stuff over here. You and me, we know it in India, especially we know it as tej patta. It's the oil from those berries. I'm going to start by measuring out my fats, not my fats, the fats that I would use to make the soap. So yeah, by the way, in this recipe, the mixture is super critical. The ratio of oil to sodium hydroxide needs to be perfect. There are a bunch of soap calculators available online. If you are new to this, I suggest you use that. So I'm going to measure 458 grams. To this, I'm going to mix this entire batch of laurel berry oil, which is about 50 mils, which comes up to about 45.5 grams of laurel berry oil. So this goes in as well. Okay, I've got my olive oil and laurel berry oil measured out. The next thing for me to measure out is the sodium hydroxide. Now, before you do that, I got to don some safety gear. The reason being, by itself, sodium hydroxide is a pretty nasty stuff if it gets on your skin and eyes. So I'm going to measure out 67 grams of sodium hydroxide. Now the amount of water that you add in this thing is not super critical. It just needs to be enough so that all the sodium hydroxide gets dissolved in the water. And this will take a little time, and the water is going to heat up quite significantly. It's been about half an hour and my sodium hydroxide solution is clear and completely dissolved. And I've also let it cool down slightly. So for the next step of the process, you obviously need a steel bowl or a pan which you need to heat up, and this has the olive oil and the laurel berry oil I have measured out earlier. Use a stainless steel bowl. Never use an aluminium bowl with sodium hydroxide. A flame resistant glass bowl would also be okay, but I don't recommend that. It may crack, and then again, these are pretty nasty chemicals. So stick to stainless steel. You also need a steel stirrer of some sort. You can go with those motorized versions, the handheld blenders. They work really well. I don't have that, so I'll use this. And that being said, we now need to mix these. Don't heat up the oil prior. You don't need to. You merely add the sodium hydroxide solution to the oil mixture. And again, do this very carefully and slowly. You could in fact make soap entirely via what is called the cold process, which means there's almost no heating up. It takes a little longer for the soap to be made that way. However, the particular type of soap I am making, Aleppo soap, is actually a hot process soap. So I am going to heat it up quite significantly. And one thing to remember when you heat these things up is you want it to be just below the boiling point. You don't want it to foam up and go over the sides of the bowl. No, you don't do that. So you just heat it up enough, and the moment you see any evidence of boiling, you immediately stop. By the way, once the soap is done, I intend to pour it out on the soap molds that I bought from Amazon. The commercially made Aleppo soap is not cast in a mold. They are laid out flat in huge sheets and then cut into blocks. But I hate cutting soap, so I'll be using that. It's been long enough and the soaps are kind of hard now, and I was able to demold them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a usable piece of soap, but yeah, it turned out a little anemic and sad looking, and I'm not really happy. So although that's it for me in this video, but I am by no means concluding this project. I will try a separate batch a few weeks from now. Fingers crossed. And that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.